Hi, welcome to the Late Night Book Club with me, Ashley Allard, and Annie Dillard tonight. This is one of my favorite books. It's The Writing Life by Annie Dillard, and I found it one day, like all the best books I have. I just came into my life. I don't know whose this is, but I've had it for years, so if it's yours, thank you very much. I enjoy it every day, and I intend on keeping it, so thank you. This is a book about the writing life. It's about creative process, specifically with writing, but I think it's pretty applicable across the board to any creative work. And I usually really don't like things on creativity or, how to, there's a lot of bullshit out there, and it's kind of, it's a money-making machine that can kind of take advantage of people's insecurities. But this is so beautiful because it's really just observational. And I tend to learn the most from anecdotes and from observation and from stories because they open me up a bit more, and they're not so like drilling in authoritative, saying this is the way things are, this is the way things are. It's just like, okay, this is the way I see things being, and this is how, I think it is. And I think I live my life a bit like that, where everything I observe and I take in during the day kind of can have many meanings and dual meanings, when you get reminded of something, or things are just constantly metaphorical. And I wanted to read just one passage from her. It's very short, and I think it's a really, really beautiful piece because I get a lot of anxiety around, not producing enough or not working enough. But the truth of it is that, you really do work really hard, and you really are, you're beating your head against something and trying to get somewhere, and a lot of times if you don't see a return, it feels like you're not doing anything, even if you're doing a lot. And you get into this kind of pigeonhole, and you just like your consciousness shrinks, and you can only see like the words on your page, or you can only hear the song that you're trying to make. And this is great because you're always creating in terms of the world. You're creating something in the world, about your experience from this thing. And even when you're focusing in on what you're making, you can't actually, block out and like only do that one thing, because the world is always present. So, on the 4th of July, my husband and our friends drove into the city, Roanoke, to see fireworks. I begged off. I wanted to keep working. I was working hard, although of course it did not seem hard enough at the time. I finished a chapter every few weeks. I castigated myself daily for writing too slowly. Even when the passages seemed to come easily, as though I were copying from a folio held open by smiling angels, the manuscript revealed the usual signs of struggle: bloodstains, teeth marks, gashes, and burns. This night, as on most nights, I entered the library at dusk. The building was locked and dark. I had a key. Every night I let myself in, climbed the stairs, found my way between the tall stacks in the dark, located and unlocked my study's door. Turned on the light. I remember how many stacks I had to hit with my hand in the dark before I turned down the road to my study. Even if I left only to get a drink of water, I felt and counted the stacks with my hand again to find my room. Once, in daylight, I glanced at a book on a stack's corner, a book I presumably touched every night with my hand. The book was The World I Live In by Helen Keller. I read it at once. It surprised me by its strong and original prose. When I flicked on my light, there all was, the bare room with yellow cinder block walls, the big flattened Venetian blind and my drawing taped to it, 2 or 3 quotations taped up on index cards, and on far tables some ever-changing books, the fielder's mitt, and a yellow bag of chocolate-covered peanuts. There was the long blonde desk and its chair, and on the desk a dozen different colored pens, some big index cards in careful splayed piles, and my messy yellow legal pads. As soon as I saw that desktop, I remembered the task. The chapter, its problems, its phrases, its points. This night I was concentrating on the chapter. The horizon of my consciousness was the contracted circle of yellow light inside my study. The lone lamp in the enormous dark library. I leaned over the desk. I worked by hand. I doodled deliriously in the legal pad margins. I fiddled with the index cards. I reread a sentence maybe 100 times, and if I kept it, I changed it 7 or 8 times, often substantially. Now a June bug was knocking at my window. I was wrestling inside a sentence. I must have heard it a dozen times before it registered, before I noticed that I had been hearing a bug knock for half an hour. It made a hollow bonking sound. Some people call the same fumbling, heavy insects May beetles. It must have been attracted to my light, what little came between the slats of the blind. I disliked June bugs. Back to work. Knock again, and finally, to learn what a monster of a fat brown June bug could fly up to a second story and thump so incessantly at my window as though it wanted admittance. At last, unthinkingly, I parted the Venetian blind slats with my fingers to look out. And there were the fireworks, far away. It was the 4th of July. I had forgotten. They were red and yellow, blue and green and white. They blossomed high in the black sky many miles away. Fireworks seemed as distant as stars, but I could hear the late banging their bursting made. The sound, those bangs so muffled and out of sync, accompanied at random the silent, far sprays of color, widening and raining down. It was the 4th of July, and I had forgotten all of wide space and all of historical time. I opened the blinds a crack, like eyelids, and it all came exploding in on me at once. Oh yes, the world.